In this video I'm going to show you how to make the base of this stool and the post and how to get them to move relative to one another. So I have a fair idea of the proportions of this bar stool and what I'm going to use, so I'm going to hop straight into Solidworks. So I'm using Solidworks 2020 and I've just created a new part, and I'm going to create a sketch on the top plane. And I'm going to sketch a circle. I'm going to convert, actually let's first dimension this. That's going to be about 500 millimeters. And then I don't need this to be solid, so I'm going to make it construction. And now I want to put in some points that will be used to locate the feet. So I'm going to go one like this. Now I could, if I wanted to, I could do a circular pattern, but since there are only 4 of them, I may just as well click the 4 points like this. Alright, just make sure that they're black. So those are on the 4 quadrants. They're 90 degrees to one another, and they're determined in size by this dimension here. So I'm going to exit that. Okay, so that's the base. You can see it's on the top plane. Now I need a second plane to be able to create the apex of the feet. So I'm just going to hold the control button. I'm going to select the plane, hold the control button, and drag another plane out. And then I can fill in on the left hand side how high I want that. So let's make that 500. Say OK. And then on this plane I'm going to enter a sketch, and I'm simply going to select the center, the origin point, and put a point in there. I could, in fact, let's do this. Let's just show you. I could do this. I could put in another control circle. Let's make that quite small, so like 20 millimeters, and make that construction. And then I need some more points, so one on that quadrant, this one, and the last one. Exit that sketch. Okay, quick edit. The line that I needed to draw in the center here didn't go so well in the last video, so I'll show it to you again. I'm going to select either the front or the right plane and put a sketch in here, lock that in place. I just need a line. I'm not going to draw this line to any of these points because I want to control it a little bit differently. By the way, let's just do that again. What I could do is I could drag, and because I've got a certain command on, I can actually type in the dimension I want while I'm holding the click button down, the left button down. Hit enter, and it'll put the dimension in for me. Right, so now I'm going to drag this around, and the reason I want to drag it around is because I want a little bit of the top of this line to appear above this sketch, and I want to be able to control that height. Okay, so I'm going to click on the line, click on that point, and say to make them coincident. So because I've established what the length of the line is, that's fixed. I now just need to go from that point to there and say I want that to be whatever it is I want it to be, 70 in this case. Go out, right, and then you should continue from here. Click on weldment, and then, so that places it right at the top, and then I'm going to click on 3D sketch and put in. So this 3D sketch thing is can be quite tricky until you know what you're doing. But for now, because I'm just using points to locate this, I don't have to worry too much. So as long as you select, drag, click, select those points in the same orientation, you're not going to have any problems. This is good enough for what you need to do now. Right, so that's going to be the basis for your 4 feet, and that's going to be the pillar. Now we need to hop into a separate file. So I'm going to create a new file. part file, and I'm simply going to create sketches which describe the diameters, the outside diameters and the inside diameters, that's the ODs and the IDs, of the tubes or the pipes that I'm going to use in that weldment file. So on the top plane, I'm going to enter a sketch, and just to show you, I'm going to be referring to, not that one, let's delete that. I'm going to be referring to this table here, which is, let's close that. This table here, which is a set of the DN specifications for pipes, which is what you're going to have to use to specify anything using pipes. So it's a good idea to become familiar with this. So I'm going to use 3 pipe sizes. We only need 2, but I just want to show you something about how to use configuration. So we're going to use this DN15. I don't know what this 26.9 is. It's probably a DN17 or something. And then this DN32. So the OD, that's the outside diameter of each one of these, is 21.3, 26.9, and 48.3. And then the material weight, you can see that's the thickness, and then the ID is given. So these 2 dimensions, those 2 dimensions, and those 2 dimensions. So let's start with a circle, which let's create another one like this, and I'm only going to create one set of circles, and I'm going to dimension them from smallest to largest. So I'm going to go from that figure there, 18.1, enter, and then dimension this one, and that'll be 21.3. enter, and then I'm going to exit the sketch. Oh dear, I think I left behind a dimension there. Yes, I did. I deleted it by mistake. Right. Good enough. Alright, so now, because I'm kind of lazy, and because I know that I'm going to need 3 different sizes and I want them all in one place, I'm going to use the configuration manager to do that. But let's save this file first. So I'm going to just go and overwrite an existing one if it's in here. Tube. Let's call it pipe because that's more accurate. Just going to give it 21. I'm not going to worry about the millimeters. 27 and 48. Okay, so if you go into the configuration manager, which is the 3rd tab at the top of your feature tree, you'll see there's a configuration manager or kind of thing that you can now drive your configurations. So the first thing I want to do is I want to rename this default one. I just click and go. You should be able to click once and then hold it down and let go. And this one is going to be the 21. So I'm going to say 21 by 1.6 because that's the thickness. Right, so I'm going to now create a new one. I'll right click here and I'll say add configuration, and let's call this one 27 times 2. So that's the 26.9, and the 2 millimeters is the wall thickness. And I'm going to create another one, add configuration, and I'm going to call this one 48 times 2.6. Okay, so there's the 48, and we're going to use the 2.6 millimeter wall thickness. So I've got 3 configurations. At the moment, if I click on any of them, nothing happens to this sketch. But if I click on one of these, and then I don't need to actually cross over, but if I click on that configuration and I now click on the sketch and I change, I'm going to double click on this dimension, and before I change this, have a look on the right hand side here. You'll see these 3 little bars. If you click on their little arrow, you'll be able to specify which dimension this will apply to, which configuration, sorry, this dimension will apply to. So I'm going to click on this configuration, and we're going to change that to 26.9 and say OK. Alright, and then we're going to do the same with this one. Double click on it. First make sure that you select this configuration, that's the configuration we're in, and then type in 22.9 and say OK. Alright, and then you can exit the sketch. So watch what happens if I now double click on the first configuration. It'll give me a smaller pipe, and the second one a larger one. So I'm using the same sketch and I'm using the same dimensions. I'm just creating new configurations. So let's double click on the third one, click on the sketch. That one we want to make sure, okay, if you don't get the dialog box on the right hand side here, you can, on the left hand side here, go to configurations and say this configuration, make sure it's chosen the one you want, and let's make that 48.3, enter, double click on this one, and that should be 43.1, enter. Sorry, I don't want the variable there. I'm not sure why. I must have clicked on. Oh, unfortunately I clicked on this and I created a variable. We won't do that now. Let's hope it doesn't go back to the variable. Nope, it hasn't. Okay, so there we go. We have 3 different configurations. I can double click on any of them. Exit that sketch first. And you'll see it'll change the sketch size in real time, and we're done as far as that's concerned. Alright, so now comes a tricky part, because I now need to save this as a library feature that I can use in my weldments. So the first thing I want you to do is to go to your options box, go to the file locations folder. You can either say edit all, in fact I'm going to do that, and then just scroll down to weldment. Okay, I'm going to cancel that because there are too many. I'm just going to scroll down here, it's going to be easier. So have a look at weldment profiles, and just have a look at where. All right, I've got 2 of them in here, but you should. We're actually only going to use the standard one. So let's edit that, or let's just click on it. You should be able to copy it. All right, or just make a note of where it is. It's C program file SolidWorks Corp, SolidWorks, and it's in my second SolidWorks set of data, Lang English weldment. Let's just see if we can get that out. Weldment profiles. There we go. Alright, so you've either got to remember it, or you should be able to Control C. And if you can't, you can just go to edit all. Just make sure you can find that same one. Here it is here. Right, weldment profiles 2. So we can copy that. Okay, so that's just so that we've got this we've got that file address in on the clipboard. Now you need to be very careful here not to select the sketch, either part, anything inside the graphics area. Only select the sketch 1 command inside the feature tree. Only select that. Do not select anything else. Then say File, Save As, and now it should default to the last known folder. I'm going to click in here and then say Control V, and there you'll see it'll. Right. So it's going to go to my folder. I created a folder of my own here. I'm going to see if I can go to ISO. Right. So let's just go quickly into this. Weldment Profiles has these 2, anti-inch and ISO. I've added a 3rd one. It's got those 2 in there. You don't need to add this 3rd one. Just click on ISO, and then before you do anything, make sure that you scroll down in the list of files available. Click on Library Feature Part. That's Solid LFP. Okay, and then save that as whatever it is that you want to save it as. Don't make it too complex. Make it something that you can figure out. So here's one of my original ones in here already. I'm going to leave it as that one and say save. and then I can actually exit the sketch. So I should now be able to choose one of those 3 diameters that I entered, 21, 27 and 48. I'm not sure if that's correct, but doesn't matter. We can sort this out later. So that's going to be 27 diameter. Now a group, here it says new group. A group can only be created if 2 lines are touching one another, perpendicular to one another or tangent, or if they are parallel to one another. So I will be able to select one of these, but I will not be able to select the others. If I try, it won't work. So I have to create a new group. So just go new group and then select another line, new group, another line, new group, and the last line. And then you say OK. Alright, so I'm going to click on this line. I'm going to say I want a structural member here, but this time I'm going to select the 48mm diameter, and it's put it into a group of its own already. Okay, so now we've got these items connected to this pipe, but you can see that they're intersecting with one another. So here's where these sketches can come in handy. I can now change this. Let's say I'm going to make it too large deliberately so that you can see what happens. So if I exit this, you'll see what happens on the outside here. That's not connecting nicely. So ideally that would just be a point, but I just needed to show you how you can use the sketch to drive things in other instances if you want to. Alright, and let's say I don't really want, this is not connecting nicely in the middle. I can just double click on that sketch, and let's say I want to increase that to 75, so it's going to move the whole sketch up a little bit, and now these are connecting more centrally. I'm going to leave it like that. You can tweak it if you want. Okay, so all that remains is to trim these tubes to one another. So I'm going to select the trim extend command, and I can select these 4 legs, and then move to the bodies that I want to trim them to. There are various permutations at the top end but these will all work, but they won't cut them off nicely like we want over here. So I'm going to say OK to that. If you have a look inside, you see it's trimmed them off, and these legs, when you bring them into a drawing, will be available as a single part that you can just say make 4 of them, so you only dimension once. And that concludes this part 1. I'll see you in part 2. Cheers.